Brian Lehrer on WNYC. So with apologies to the Beatles, we might call this next segment Strawberry Fields Forever, or Blueberry Fields Forever, or maybe Raspberry Fields Forever. Why? Well, if you visited a farmer's market recently, July marks the middle of berry season. It's peak berry time for green markets in the tri-state area. But over the past 2 decades or so, berries have gone from, a fragile, seasonal, mostly local treat to a year-round global commodity. And it turns out it's one of the most lucrative commodities in the produce aisle. Julia Moskin's New York Times deep dive, did you see it? Traces that transformation largely through one company, Driscoll's. You've probably seen the brand at your local bodega or supermarket. It's a $7 billion family-controlled California operation that now sells 4 billion clamshells of berries a year across 60 countries. By one market research measure, it's the second highest earning brand in American supermarkets, behind only Coca-Cola. Her reporting shows that Driscoll's is a business that has stopped thinking of itself as a farm at all. It owns berry genetics and data and contracts the actual growing out to farmers worldwide. Meanwhile, Driscoll's is facing mounting questions about pesticides, labor, water, and plastic use. And it raises the question for consumers of whether this is all worth it to have berries year-round, especially berries that have maybe stopped tasting like much of anything, as some people say. Julia Moskin is a correspondent in the food section of the New York Times, and she joins us now. Hi, Julia. Welcome to WNYC Today.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for having me.
And listeners, we have about 10 minutes here at the end of the show on this. So, A, how much have you been willing to pay for a really good berry and why? Maybe as a parent of a young child, you find this is the healthiest alternative to a sweet treat that they'll actually eat. Maybe you are a conscientious objector to out-of-season berries and will only buy at the farmer's market or otherwise in season. So what keeps you buying berries or keeps you from buying berries? Help us report this story. 212-433-WNYC, or of course any questions for Julia Moskin from the Times, 212-433-WNYC. Call or text 212-433-9692. So how did berries become such a big business?
Well, often I can say that's a long story, Brian. It's really not a very long story, except, if we go way back to the dawn of agriculture. But berries have really only been completely and commercially domesticated, and even then not altogether, since less than 100 years ago. And more recently, blueberries and blackberries, in addition to strawberries and raspberries. So part of how this happened was, of course, through more advanced hybridization, but Driscoll's as a company made this resolution in 1989 at their board meeting to make every berry available in every season in every part of the world. And that, of course, seemed completely insane at the time, but they pretty much have done it. And that is why I thought it would be interesting to write about.
And on Driscoll's, you write that they are less a farming business than a research and marketing enterprise, harvesting berry-related data instead of berries. What do you mean by berry-related data?
Well, I think what we picture, and what certainly used to be the truth when we see that clamshell at the market, is maybe a giant farm in California. And indeed, Watsonville is where the company started as a family farm in 1904. But part of achieving those goals has been that they have transitioned from owning land and actually growing berries to doing the very expensive research and development work to figure out how best to grow berries. And they have now sort of passed that or outsourced that process on to about 900 growers in 20 countries, where they have 35 different test plots where they test thousands of different strains at any given moment. And they really never give up, the quest to reach the berry of each kind that has the highest yield, that is the most beautiful, that has the best taste, of course. is really the goal that they are moving toward, I think, faster than anyone thought, is what I was told.
Is that bad?
Well, it's complicated. It is amazing to have these things that were, incredibly unreachable 99% of the year, right? So now berries are accessible. Everyone accepts that they're healthy. A lot of them, not all of them, as we heard a lot about on the comments over at the Times website. A lot of them are delicious. A lot of them are not. We can talk about that in a minute. So accessible, healthy, delicious, great. Children love them, as a lot of us know, to our cost. But there are serious costs in terms of pesticides, raising, keeping berries warm, which is what they really need, requires a ton of plastic, especially in cooler climates like Peru and China, where they're growing now. And just really the carbon footprint of flying all of these very perishable fruits around the world is extremely high.
You mentioned some taste good, some don't. I'll point out that you write that the Maravilla, am I saying that right, or
The
Maravilla?
Maravilla.
The raspberry that built Driscoll's global business really, you quoting you, doesn't taste all that good. I don't think I've had one of those, but why not if they've got all this data and all this science?
Well, the Maravilla is actually being phased out. That really was the first berry that anyone had come up with that was, it lasts longer on the shelf. It is, strong. It's bright. The problem is that it's just not very sweet and it's a bit dry. And I think a lot of people would buy those berries or buy Driscoll's strawberries because they looked good and have been repeatedly disappointed by how they taste. I was very interested to hear from the sources that I talked to in the berry industry, even people who are in the business, really frankly talking about how bad the berries that they used to sell were. They were really like tomatoes were 20 years ago, just grown for shipping and hardiness and not really for flavor. And now they say, we know that we were disappointing consumers right and left, but now we are working on it. And it is true, having researched this story for about a year, that a lot of the berries that you can buy on the market are a lot better than the ones that they were than what you could buy 10 years ago. However, if you're buying them completely out of season, halfway around the world, they're not going to taste good. And they're not consistently perfect yet, but they're a lot better than they were.
On the taste issue, Pamela in LA. You're on WNYC. Hi, Pamela.
Hi, I'm on a bus. You might hear the recording in the background. The stuff.
I'm just glad to hear there is public transportation in Los Angeles, but go ahead.
It's true. So I think you've moved past this. I mean, I think the guest has been talking about this issue since my call, but I think you reached an opposite conclusion. So I grew up in Ohio, and the produce that we ate when I was growing up, whether it was from farmers market or a grocery store or our own garden, had like this really profound flavor and scent, and I've pretty much given up eating fruit nowadays. I'm 60, and it's because when I walk into a grocery store or even a farmer's market and I try to smell the produce, there's no fragrance, and you can see how about the uniformity, that they've been bred. I read an article in the Times like many years ago that explained it for me finally, because when I talked to people about it, they looked at me like I was crazy. But then the article said that the breeding is the way that the produce had changed over a generation, was that even the seeds, no matter where it's grown or how it's grown nowadays, it won't have
and it's for mass production and for shipping, I guess, in the ways that Julie was describing. Pamela, thank you. I love that you called us from a bus, by the way. A couple of texts coming in. Listener writes, I never buy Driscoll's because of their poor treatment of their laborers. Another one on that says, where did it go? That they resisted, I'm summarizing this one because I don't see it anymore, that they resisted unionization by the UFW. There are a couple of sort of opposite ones on blueberries in particular. One says blueberries are destroying the Andes. They are taking all the water from glaciers in South America. But another one says that blueberries, sorry, these are coming in so fast. Another one says that blueberries are supposed to be anti-carcinogenic, so they like blueberries. So comment on any of those. We have about a minute left.
Well, I can't, let's just, all
Take
of
your
those
pick.
things are true, right? And all of those things are considerations that we can all take into account when we go to the market. They, having them accessible all year round is in some ways, there's a cost to that. And I think that is what your listeners are responding to. So it's like a lot of other things, it is personal choice. But I will say that what they have moved on to, at least, is that it is true that they used to just really be bred for looks and hardiness. And there is at least now a new focus on flavor, but it could take decades.
Labor
and
issues,
that really shows up.
environmental issues.
Well, what Driscoll's has done is outsource all of that, right? They don't have any employees. They don't own the lands where that are being deforested for blueberries. So absolutely, those are serious concerns. What Driscoll's has done is manage to protect themselves from that to a certain extent.
And I'll just note that you end your Times article with Taylor Doyle, a third-generation Western New York farmer who just pulled out 95 acres of apple trees to plant blueberries. So people can find locally sourced blueberries, huh?
Absolutely true. They may be Driscoll's, they may be some other brand. It's gotten really hard to tell. But you can always go by the taste and by the smell, of course, at the market.
Julia Moskin, reporter in the food section of the New York Times. Thank you so much. Correspondent in the food section. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Brian.
WNYC's journalism and storytelling is heard by millions of passionate listeners. Sponsors of our programming gain our listeners' attention and their respect. Learn about how your organization can support WNYC and WNYC Studios at sponsorship.wnyc.org.
The United States is about to mark its 250th anniversary.
And so, on the Global Story podcast from the BBC, we're telling surprising tales of American influence on the world stage and in ordinary people's lives all across the globe.
We have this ability to export our story, and a lot of people have bought it.
I feel like the American dream is alive but not well.
From the BBC, it's the United States at 250.
Listen wherever you get your podcasts or find us on YouTube.